This is the Aptitude Outdoors Podcast.
There are a number of footprints that I've seen that are faked, and this can be done. But on the other hand, there are a few that show some characteristics that I think could not have been faked.
There is a metal-covered building, and someone or something hits the side of this metal building. Boom, boom, boom. We make our way out to the lip of this ravine, and I'm like, Kirk, is there a guy over there or what? He's like, it's not a person, I got nothing.
In the moment, what I thought was a big cat stalking me out of the woods. And then, as it got down to just before seeing it, thinking it was a person because of hearing the actual footfalls. And then when I finally did stand up, at first I didn't see it, and then all of a sudden, what the heck is that? Thinking it was a black bear because it was squatted down. And then when it stood up, it stood and turned and looked in my direction. I saw the ear at the side of its head and the flat face side profile. And it turned and looked at me, and seeing it in broad daylight was absolutely the most amazing experience you could ever have.
I grew up, my dad was like 200% into the Bigfoot thing, and we grew up in these woods in Michigan.
Okay.
And like he always was telling me these stories, and we watched all those like real cheesy History Channel and Discovery Channel shows from like the early 2000s. And I just, I've never got it away from it. You know what I'm saying? Like I've never been on like a Bigfoot hunt, or I've never done anything like that.
Funny.
But it's like, it's always in the back of my mind. And I threw like the Appalachian Trail a couple years ago, and it's just always in the back of your head because it's like, I just grew up with it,
Yes, yes.
And it's kind of like you. I was reading your history about it, and you were kind of the same way. It sounded like you were very skeptical, and then you had a sighting, and you were just like,
well,
oh.
You have to be skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing more important than healthy skepticism. Yeah. And and I tell people, you don't go by what I'm telling you or what I have seen, because I might seem like an okay, average, everyday guy, but that doesn't mean my story's legit because you weren't there when it happened.
Yeah.
So It's important for people to go out on their own. And I'm not saying you'll have an encounter. What I'm saying is you will learn things and see things that might convince you that, hey, maybe there is a possibility of something like this roaming Ohio, the rest of North America. And if you do it that way, it gives you a little skepticism, but in the same breath, it gives you kind of that door that's open into the reality that, there's too many people seeing these things. And if one of them's telling the truth, it adds credence to the legend or to the fact that they do exist.
Yeah. So I was really interested in your story because all I have on the internet is these little snippets. You get like 2 sentences. They're like, this is what happened. And I always get interested in stories because I'm sure it was much more detail than just kind of like, oh, I went out and I was looking for this, and then all of a sudden this happened. So I know it was a while ago.
That's because I'm protective, for one thing, because you know what? I'm not about boasting about what happened to me or what happened that fateful day.
Mm-hmm.
But what I am about is seeking the truth, doing it with due diligence, and having a standard to go by in terms of investigations and how to investigate, and to rule out everything first before saying it's a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Because you're not doing yourself any good by thinking everything's a Bigfoot just because someone told you so. I mean...
Yeah, that's what I get a lot of the vibe of like, there's hundreds and hundreds of documentaries and TV shows out there, and they're all so reactionary, and everything's a Bigfoot in the woods, and there's everything. It's dramatized heavily, but a lot of the people that are out there trying to research this are not really like that. Everything is like, yeah, that probably is just some other animal, or until you get some conclusive evidence. So I think that's a really good way to be. But I guess I'm more interested in how did that make you feel? Like that's a life-changing moment to see something that you shouldn't exist technically. Like how did you feel in the moment? Like blood running cold, or
in the moment, what I thought was a big cat stalking me out of the woods. And then as it got down to just before seeing it, thinking it was a person because of hearing the actual footfalls. And then when I finally did stand up, look over the low growing pines in the woods, and at first I didn't see it, but kept looking back and forth. And then all of a sudden, what the heck is that? Thinking it was a black bear because it was squatted down. And then when it stood up, and when it stood and turned and looked in my direction, I saw the ear at the side of its head. And the flat face side profile. And it turned and looked at me. Its jaw kind of dropped, like, oh my God, what are you doing there? I think it thought I had already made it down to the dirt road below. And seeing it in broad daylight was absolutely the most amazing experience you could ever have.
Yeah, and you hear about it so much, and I'm from Ohio. I live in Ohio, and it's so crazy because I listen to a lot of podcasts. I like to watch the documentaries, and it's just like every single one of them is Ohio. Everybody always thinks Washington, Oregon, Pacific Northwest, but what is it about Ohio? There's just so many sightings that people have from Ohio.
Well, if you're an Ohio native, there's a lot of answers are right at your fingertips. For one thing, what's on the northern edge of our state?
Lake Erie.
Okay, and what's on the southern edge?
The Ohio River.
So you have huge water.
Okay.
You have north-south drainage. So that means you have a lot of water that comes out of the ground and eventually flows into either Lake Erie or the Ohio River Valley. Well, when you have that kind of water, that means you're going to have a lot of food source or greenery. And, Ohio, if you look at the history of Ohio was pretty much completely deforested by the 1880s, 1890s. They took every tree because they wanted to get what? They wanted to get the coal out of the ground. They wanted to get the timber to build things. And pretty much the whole East Coast was deforested by the early 1900s. So there were no places to hide. All the animals were round up and killed, driven off. Nothing could survive here anymore. Well, it took a lot of dedication and a lot of years of replanting, and the few tracts of woods that did survive did. And, now in 130 years later, Ohio has way more forest land than it did in 1950, 1960. It's not even close. We have the most forests in the state for over almost 150 years.
Yeah, so that's something a lot of people don't know, that like the deer populations in Ohio were pretty much like gone for a very long time, and they were reintroduced.
If you saw deer in the 60s, that was like having a Bigfoot sighting.
Yeah. It's something that not a lot of people are aware of, and I've researched that in the past, and now they're like the hunting season up here in Lucas County is like 4 deer per season or something. It's a super high number. So yeah, well, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, Lucas County, that brings back memories. And I went to University of Toledo, so.
Me too.
Yeah, see, there you go. But yes, so I mean, the amount of food source that's in Ohio is amazing. We're a predominant oak hickory forest in our state. And oaks and hickories are the two most productive trees in the forest canopy that produce food for the duff layer of the forest to feed the deer, to feed the turkeys. So when you have this abundance of prey, aka deer, turkeys, coons, everything, what do you think's taking advantage of it? Predators.
Yep.
But here's the problem. Does Ohio have wolf populations?
Nope.
No. Does Ohio have an abundance of mountain lions?
Nope.
No. So when you need something to help control the deer population, something like Bigfoot, they're going to come right in and take full advantage of it. And they are very, very good at hunting deer. I mean, we've had many reports over the years of people from various backgrounds, including law enforcement, seeing these things, chasing deer, catching deer, taking deer. So
a lot of encounters are hunters who are out deer hunting, seeing Bigfoot.
You know, there are hunters, there are bird watchers, there's hikers, there's just general people driving down the road. Mm-hmm. Every shape, form, color, creed, it doesn't matter. People have seen them. And what are they seeing? I don't know. Yeah. Hard to say. But it's meeting the criteria or the description of an upright, hair-covered, bipedal creature, anywhere from 5 to 10, 11 feet tall, depending on the sex and the age. And, the big ones are like 10, 11 feet tall. Dude, that's huge.
Yeah, I'm 6'1". That's, if I saw something 10 feet tall, I would literally like shit my pants.
Well, dude, the shoulders will be 4.5 feet wide.
Yeah, that's insane.
That size. I mean, I've investigated cases, including very recently, of a huge male walking past a building, like a barn. There's a light hanging on the side of the barn, and its head was above the barn light, and the light was 10'3" off the ground. Mm. I mean, they get huge, the big ones. And when the big ones are involved, you better be hopeful it's not mad at you.
Well, I mean, you have what, like 30 years experience in this? You've had to hear some crazy stories over the years.
My first Bigfoot interview was in 1989 in rural Harrison County over near Tippecanoe off of State Route 800. And after interviewing that witness, because I found out that he had seen a bear walk across State Route 800. And when I heard about it and got to meet the guy the next day, he told me the whole story about the bear walking across 800. He goes, yeah, I'm coming home from work. I worked at the brick plant in like the Uricksville area. Got off at midnight coming down the road, and the bear was standing off on the left. He goes, I hit my brights on it. He goes, it did the most amazing thing. I'm like, what's that? He goes, it stepped across the road in like 3 steps, got to the 4-foot-high guardrail because the creek was going right underneath. He says it just stepped over it right into the creek. He goes, I never knew a bear could do that. I just left it at that. I said, interesting, great story. Cool, thank you. Walked away. Never said the word Bigfoot to him. Mm-hmm. Nothing. He didn't know what a Bigfoot was. No interest. He wasn't claiming it to be a Bigfoot. He claimed it was a bear. Mm-hmm. Well, anyone who has any knowledge knows a bear can't walk across a 28-foot wide road in 3 steps and step over a 4-foot-high guardrail without going down on all fours. That's called common sense.
That's crazy. Yeah, because I spend a lot of time outdoors. Like, I'm a backpacker. I'm literally going backpacking this weekend. So to talk about this is kind of freaking me out a little bit. We're going up into northern Michigan.
UP. Yeah. Been up there many times.
Yeah, I think we're going around the Gaylord area, just south of the UP. But it's amazing. But you hear all these stories, and it just kind of like makes you second guess everything that's going on out in the woods. But is this something like that you think people should be fearful of? Because as a backpacker, I've literally grown up with the mindset of that it's ridiculous to carry a weapon in the woods. And then when I listen to every single Bigfoot researcher on earth, they say you should absolutely have a weapon at all times.
Well, I've been doing this for a lot longer than most of all those other ones by far, and I've never carried a weapon in the woods.
I never have either, except for if I'm hunting.
I've backpacked all over the country. I've hiked. Heck, I've done 22 miles in one day.
Mm-hmm. And where's your favorite place to backpack?
You know what? I like Shawnee State Forest in Ohio.
Okay, yeah.
Shawnee is insane. There's miles and miles of trails up and down. Very strenuous but challenging. But in the same breath, it's so beautiful and spectacular, and so darn squatchy too. Mm-hmm. It's just a great combination. Tar Hollow is really good. Obviously, parts of Wayne, really good. The Buckeye Trail's good.
Yeah, I've been itching to do that.
It just depends what you want and what you're looking for. The biggest key is this. always bring a weak link with you. That's a backpacker that's not capable. Because in worst case scenario, they can take one for the team, and you can tell the story about it.
I'll make sure
a plaque up for them.
I'll make sure to tell my buddy who's going with me. It's his first backpacking trip this weekend.
Yeah,
I'll make sure to let him know that. Like, if a Sasquatch comes, man, you're first on the dinner plate. See you later.
Well, what you do is make sure you bring a little fanny pack and say it's a water pack. It's the extra water, and ask him to carry it. Really pack it with bacon. And that's the way, if it goes down bad of wolves or whatever, like I say, they'll go after him first.
I might end up eating it though.
You just got to tell the story. No,
that's great advice.
In reality though, don't go out alone.
Uh-huh.
I mean, always have someone with you. And in terms of backpacking, I know a lot of backpackers, they all carry. That's fine, but that's because of the weirdos in the woods. The only thing you have to fear, it's not the animals, the Bigfoots, it's people.
Absolutely.
People have bad intent. And people are weird.
The scariest thing I've ever ran into on the Appalachian Trail was a guy. Like, he was creepy. He freaked us all out. We had to leave camp like at late in the afternoon when we wanted to set up. And I 100% agree with you. I'm kind of a technology nerd, even though I'm a huge outdoorsman as well. And I always love watching on the documentaries, they have all these awesome technology. So what would, like, if you're going out looking, researching, going out on like a Bigfoot research day, what's your like gear setup?
Well, in terms of a day setup, you always want to have some kind of form of video, something with a real good lens on it, so it has a good zoom on it, where it's not digital, it's actually a non-digital lens, because digital just digitizes, it doesn't actually increase the clarity.
More blob squatches.
Yes, more blob squatches. And at nighttime, I like using flare devices because they will enable you to see what's coming around by the heat signature, yet the thing doesn't know that you can see it.
Yeah.
And then another thing is get yourself a cheap audio recorder, one that takes an SD card, where when you're hiking, when you guys leave camp, turn the audio on, say what time it is and whatever, and just record your whole day. Because what's going to happen is you go your whole day, nothing happens. All you simply do is just delete the recording, start over the next day. And this way, if something does happen, you have it all on audio. If you start hearing wood knocks or something starts yelling or someone has a sighting, you have it all recorded. And it backs up your story. It helps validate. And this way, if you do hear a Bigfoot yelling or wood knocks, you'll have it on recording. You can send me the clip. I can analyze it for you and tell you what it is.
That's great advice, actually. I have, as a guy who runs a podcast and does a bunch of video, I have about 50,000 recorders laying around.
See?
I think my wife wants me to get rid of all of them, and I'm like, no, I need them. But that's actually, I never thought to do something like that. Like, it costs you nothing to just run a recorder all day.
No, it doesn't cost you anything at all. And simply this, even if you're going squatching, say you're going out to one area where people say it's super hot, the activity. Rule number one is before you even get out of the car,
turn it on.
Put your recorder on. Then record the whole time you're out. Like I say, you give yourself backup.
And that makes so much sense because I will say the scariest thing that I've ever had happen to me, and I do not believe it to be a Sasquatch encounter because I've asked people about the noise. I've described it. It sounded like a baby screaming in the woods, and I think somebody told me it was like a fox in heat or something.
It could be a fox. It could be a bobcat.
Yeah,
all different things. Yeah.
This was in the Smoky Mountains, and I'm in a dead sleep, and I wake up and I hear this noise, and like, I'm sure you felt it doing all this, looking for Bigfoot. Like, your just blood runs cold. Like, it's just like your spine shivers when you hear something creepy. And I felt that. And I had a cell phone. I had I had a GoPro. I had all this. My first reaction was not, I want to record this. My first reaction was like, I might die. Like, I'm terrified right now, and I'm like trying not to move. I'm like just waking up. So I could totally understand if someone came into contact with something, their first reaction is never like, I'm going to take a picture. I'm going to take an audio recorder. Their first reaction is like, oh, whoa.
Yeah, no. Well, and it's even with the phones. I always get the question, well, Mark, with everyone having a cell phone, how come we don't have more pictures and more videos? It's because the people are crapping their pants before they can even think to put their phone up. And all I say is I challenge anyone. Pick your phone up, turn your camera on. By the time you get it where you can actually focus on anything, and oh, by the way, the Bigfoot's not going to be standing still for you either. Mm-hmm. Try to get a photo. And when you do, it's going to be so blurry. And if it's in video mode, it's going to be so digitized looking, you're just going to be called a hoaxer and people are going to call it a blob squatch. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to pull your phone out lightning quick. You're going to be looking at the Bigfoot in amazement, blown away, terrified, in shock.
I'm always interested in the track casting because that's like kind of the only what people would call evidence.
Physical
that people
evidence.
Have. Yeah, physical evidence. And there's always comparisons made, like, and this is very true because I have an anthropology degree, and I apologize to my listeners. I literally say that every episode. They're probably like, "Dude, shut up about your anthropology degree."
Yeah, shut up about it.
yeah. But they don't find chimpanzees in the forest. I think they have one recorded chimpanzee fossil on record in human history. Like, since we've been researching anything, there's like bear fossils. You don't find skeletons. Like, the forest eats stuff. So like, logically, yes, it would be hard to find something if it was out there. But footprints, I know a lot of people would say, over time they kind of get morphed into bigger footprints, and I have a size 14, man. If I'd step in the woods and give it a few days and it rains or something, I'm sure it could spread out a little bit. How do you determine like this is a Bigfoot footprint?
Well, there's certain characteristics to look for, including like the mid-tarsal break point and the toe splay, the size of the toes, and just different variables. Because if there's one perfect track in somewhere and there's no more, something's going to be wrong, and you just really have to be honest with yourself because too many people find human tracks and want them to be Bigfoot tracks. Mm-hmm. Bigfoots are not going out of their way to leave footprints. They're not stupid. They are not. They go out of their way not to leave them. Absolutely.
There's actually research on chimpanzees that show that they will try and cover up their footprints occasionally.
Well, I mean, if anything, they know. They have to take risks crossing into certain areas. That's why they follow the creeks, the waterways, the old strip mine cuts, the power line cuts, telephone pole cuts, anything where there's a gas line. That's the routes they use. The route of least path. The path of least resistance.
Absolutely.
That's what they follow, just like the deer do. Mm-hmm. So because the deer want the easy way through, and they're preying on the deer. So what we use as roads are totally different what they use as roads. Plus, they're very active at night. So when we're getting ready to go to bed, that's when they're getting really starting to do their majority of their feeding is at night.
Yeah, so the footprints, that seems like, especially in Ohio with how the ground is, like out in the Pacific Northwest, the ground is completely different than it is here in Ohio. How hard is it to cast something like that? Because I know you've done that, obviously.
Yeah, well, we have clay shale soil. Nothing holds for any length of time. Mm-hmm. You have to find the tracks as recent as possible and be lucky. Casting is not hard at all. Mixing the material, getting your mix rate right. It's having the time to let them sit, to harden, and to get them out. And we've done it many times. And, all I can say is this. I think in all these years, I probably have seen 5 tracks or track finds. That includes a line, a couple lines of tracks that were actually legitimately Bigfoot track lines or tracks. And the rest were all hoaxed, faked, misidentification, hoaxed.
Yeah.
There's hoaxers everywhere.
The hoaxing is probably very easily discernible because I know what deer tracks look like. I know what footprints look like because I've just been on trails so much. I've hunted. And like, you can see something. If somebody stamped a big wood footprint like 20 times over and it looks exactly the same,
Yes.
you're going to be like, yeah, this is BS. And like, a human footprint looks pretty discernible, like
Yes.
it has a very distinct shape. Like everybody has their baby's footprint on a piece of paper. Like that's what it looks like in the dirt too. It's not just like a big block.
Yeah, and especially the way the morphology of our foot is totally different than the morphology of a Sasquatch. I mean, when you look at Dr. Jeff Meldrum's research on foot morphology, you can clearly see there's a huge difference between a Sasquatch track and a human track, other than the shape and the 5 toes. Way, way different in appearance and how the foot hits the ground, the flesh pad hits the ground, how it pivots its Achilles. I mean, it's set up totally different than our foot structure. It is designed to go up and down, to climb very efficiently. Where us, no, we need aids, we need shoes, we need boots, we need ropes, we need everything to do all that.
Yeah, we're
these
wimpy.
things. Yeah, these things are the ultimate ninjas of the forest.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that their foot structure, from what the footprints have found, they kind of bend more in the middle than like ours would. Kind of like more like a primate, like a vestigial primate, like a chimpanzee or a.
Yes, of course they bend. They're very flexible in the middle. I think Jeff was saying that, and that's Dr. Meldrum, was because he thinks that the ankle actually sits a little. It's not right at the back of the foot like us. It's kind of a little farther in, so it gives it more flexibility, so it can free fall in all directions. Where our foot, because of our Achilles, the way it's set up, you try to move it side to side, you twist an ankle.
Yeah, I've done that many times.
Yeah, they have very flexible feet. And guys like you and I who hike and backpack all the time, well, our biggest investment is into our socks and our footwear. We need something that's comfortable, lightweight, that doesn't sweat, doesn't freeze, grips. Yeah, so we have all these needs that we need. Where a Bigfoot, it's the pure minimalistic foot that doesn't need anything. Yeah. And it can go through anything and everything. When it runs, you ain't going to have a chance to keep up with it.
I can barely keep up with another person, man. I'm not in great shape.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. I mean, so these things are the ultimate long distance runners, the ultimate survivalists. Everything that we are losing every day as technology increases in terms of our awareness out in the forest, they increase every single day. They are the absolute, Bruce Lee ninja, whatever you want to call it, of the whole of the woods. What's
your interpretation of the wood knocks? Because that's kind of like the telltale thing that people say about Bigfoot. Like I heard wood knocks. I just don't.
I mean, wood knocks are a couple of things. They're either a Sasquatch or they're other people doing it. You don't know they're there. Or there's, even in some instances where it's woodpeckers, or even in real cold conditions where trees snap and it sounds like a wood knock. But what I'm saying is this, is that, the Bigfoots do use wood knocks. It's hard to, we're still trying to figure out what the pattern is. I mean, there's single knocks, double knocks, triple knocks. I've had instances in the winter, and I'll just say South Central Ohio, where me and another fellow investigator, we were hiking down in an area that we were working, part of our area where we have recorders up. And, we heard wood knocks broad daylight, snow on the ground, everything. But we were like in a hollow in between 3 or 4 different big slopes. They were so loud, you would have thought the Bigfoot would have been standing right there. Oh, and we're looking all around, and we heard it multiple times. Never saw it though. And this is during the winter. So to me, the way the sounds reflect down these hollows or in these slopes, it could be coming from way up, and it's just projected toward us, and it makes it sound like it's right on top of you. So it's they use it for basically saying, okay, people are here, now they're gone, let's get out of here. There's just different things they do, because usually when you do wood knocks, there's Bigfoots around. It'll bring them in, they'll respond. When they realize it's people, they leave immediately.
Gotcha. So it's like a communication.
Yeah. It's
think?
just a way. I mean, and they do claps. They do rock clacks. They do all different things. And those stupid rock structures you see on the river, piles, those aren't Bigfoots. Those are people do that all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, people do that as art and everything. So I laugh when people say, well, that's, who really did that. Oh, okay. Yeah. So
just trying to make it fit it into their idea of Bigfoot.
Yeah, of course.
The thing that really, the two things that freak me out the most, and like, I honestly, like, not to just derail anything, but like, I don't know what to believe. Like, I don't necessarily say I believe in Bigfoot because I'm like, there's so much like people researching it out there, and it's just like overwhelming to me because like I said, I grew up with it my whole life. I've spent a ton of time outdoors, but as I've seen you say in the past online, it's like, you have a better chance of hitting the lottery than seeing one of these things. You know what you're saying? So
exactly.
I don't know what to believe, but the first time I ever heard what they called the Ohio howl, like my blood ran cold because that's so creepy.
Dude, when you hear it in person at about 100 feet away, the word creepy doesn't even come to mind. Your whole body absolutely just lights up. The deepness of the notes are so low in the spectrum that your whole body vibrates.
Yeah, and I'll play it here for people that don't know what it is. But like the sound itself is scary, but the like thinking about hearing that in the if I heard that in the woods, I don't know what to do.
Well, just put it this way: the term turtle head will come to fruition very quickly. Just hold it in is all I'll say. Go back in the shell. Go back in the shell.
Oh my God! And one of the things that I've heard people say a lot is like, they say that you can feel it if you hear it. Like it's a rumbling, deep.
Of course it is.
Like what do they call it?
Deep bass note. It resonates.
Yeah.
Through your body because it's below our spectrum of hearing. Our spectrum of hearing is roughly about 70 hertz to about 15,000 kilohertz as an adult. Perfect hearing is 20 to 20,000, the spectrum. Yep. These things are hitting way below 70, so we only feel the resonation coming through our body. We only hear anything over 70, 80 hertz. Some people can hear down in the 50s, but they got to have a really good hearing and not work around loud things their whole life, because over time we just lose our ability to hear the full spectrum. And
I have I literally in where I do sound all the time, so I have a subwoofer and I use it to mix sound and I'll put like a sine, like just a sine wave, which if people don't know what that is, it's just a continuous sound. And I'll drop it down to like 20 and you can feel it in your chest, but anything below that is just like you do not hear it, but it's playing.
No, not at all, of course.
And I think what do they call it? Infrasound? Is that what they call this?
Infrasound, yes.
And that is, I think it's not just some made up thing. Like infrasound is a real thing. Like I believe tigers do it. Like
tigers do it when they hunt, and they say they use their infrasound when they lock eyes with their prey. They say once a tiger locks eyes with you, you might as well go into their stomach. They got you. They put you in a trance almost. That's why you bring the weak link with you once again. Have them look in the tiger's eyes, and once again. So
yeah, there's been so many people talking about this for so long. What do you think? Nobody. I think I read like 16% of people in America believe in this, but there's stuff going back to Native American history and oral history and legends and then totem poles and stuff like this.
Of course.
What
do totems lie?
I don't know. I don't.
But think about it. Every Native American culture in North America had totems.
Mm-hmm.
And on their totems, they reflected animals and things that were around, like eagles. Are those real?
Mm-hmm.
Bears, are those real?
Correct, yeah.
Elk, are those real?
Absolutely.
Now, what's the ape face or the ape head on there? What's that?
Yeah. That's why I'm like literally, I watch, read, like I've read Meldrum's book. I've read so many books. I'm like an avid reader. I've listened to like every episode of every Bigfoot podcast out there. And
I've never listened to any.
I just don't
know. Other than
know.
Cliff and Bobo, I've never listened to any.
Yeah, and you are part of the BFRO, which is kind of like, if people don't know what that is.
I'm the curator of Ohio.
Ohio, yes.
Yeah.
So I mean, can you explain what that is for people who are interested? Because like my audience is not, I do not run a Bigfoot show. It's just an outdoor show.
Here's what you want to do is you want to go to bfro.net. That's our website. It's the oldest and longest run organized organization that strives to find the truth and document all the evidence about the North American Sasquatch. And I've been involved with it. I think I first got in, it was around 2000, and or 99 in there. And then I took about a 2 or 3 year hiatus when my first child passed away when she was young. And then when I kind of got my marbles back, I got back into it, and I've been in it ever since. And it's a great organization. It's a very well done website. If the audio he's talking about, you can go and listen to all these different audios across North America. The sighting database is the best in the world. You can go into Ohio or any state you live in, see all the investigated reports that have been published, read the stories. A lot of times there's photos with them and things like that. And you can make judgment just for yourself what you think. Because I mean, like I tell you guys, you don't believe in something unless you see it, but you do keep an open mind about it. Mm-hmm. I was very fortunate to accidentally see one. And after seeing it in 1997, I realized that, you know what? Some of these people that I have interviewed over all these years, they've actually seen this thing. They have to be telling the truth because of what I saw. So, but once again, I think the best thing to do is keep your skepticals on, just because, once again, you haven't seen anything. Mm-hmm. But, if you talk around, you ask the right people, you'd be surprised the stories you'll get out of people. You'd be really surprised.
The amount of encounters I've heard, it just blows my mind. And, like, obviously, some of them are wacky. Like
totally wacky.
Like, that's why I have a hard time with some of it. And, like, but some of them you hear and you're like, that could have been me. And that's scary.
Well, some of my best witnesses, I'll be dead honest with you, are witnesses that I interviewed back in the mid-90s. And then 20-some years go by. Who do I run into? Just in the middle of like a state park. Mm-hmm. My witness. Start talking. Hey, tell me about your sighting again. And so this is 24 years later. And when they're citing, when they tell the story, and it's precisely, exactly how they told it 24 years ago, that's something that's instilled in their mind because it was such a dramatic event in their life. It's like having your children. When you have your first kid, all your kids are born. That's a part of your life you'll never forget. Mm-hmm. And that's how dramatic a Bigfoot sighting is. And this person, man, he nailed not only the whole sighting and the story, but the exact time, the date, everything, because it's so encrusted in him, because it scared him so bad, it shook him up so bad that it's something he'd never forget. So those are the kinds of people that you want to keep in your back pocket when you talk about Bigfoot, because, it's great talking to the old timers about what happened to them in 1960. And when you see the way their eyes light up, the way their emotions, their body, their hair stands up on their arms, because it was something that it shouldn't have happened. It wasn't supposed to happen, but guess what? It did. So you really got to think about that.
What is your thoughts? And I feel like I already have a good gauge on this, but like what they call the woo I think that scares a lot of people away from even considering this thing of the goofy stuff. Like, it's an alien, it's a ghost, what do you think about that?
Well, I think the woo is just that woo. I think it's people that are looking for explanations on why people have a tough time seeing these things, or they don't leave treks because they're being beamed up to the ship, that type of things. Well, the fact is in 1967 on October 20th, Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin filmed a Bigfoot in Bluff Creek, California. Not only did they film a Bigfoot for so many frames of film, which has never been debunked. Don't believe anything you say, because remember, anyone can claim to be an expert and say that, well, I debunked the film. Oh, really? What's your credentials? Oh, I'm just saying I debunked it. Things like that. Well, a lot of people don't realize there were a track line of like 14 tracks that were casted too at the site. Mm-hmm. So not only did you have two people have the visual sighting, and Bob Gimlin's still alive, and to this day, he'll tell you what happened. Mm-hmm. And there was a whole track line too to go with it, and the footprints have dermal ridges in it, which are equivalent to fingerprints. Mm-hmm. And so the fact is if Bigfoot was interdimensional, was an alien or anything, why would it leave tracks? And two, why would it even be bothered to being seen if the technology is that great? They can just beam in, beam out, be done with it. There is no worry. So This is a flesh and blood, some type of hominid, probably a relic hominid that just got lost in the chain of command, let's say, as humans evolved into what we are today. And, it is what it is. You just have to take it on faith. This is a flesh and blood animal. I've interviewed over 335 witnesses in all these years. Not one of them have ever mentioned a spaceship, lights, anything out of the ordinary other than a hair-covered, flesh and blood breathing animal.
A lot of time I hear about these lights in the forest. Do you think that has anything to do with Bigfoot? Because I have no idea what that is.
No, and I'll be honest with you. I've seen, what can I call them? Lights, I guess, but they look like they're in the air. Mm-hmm. And I don't even know what to call them, and they move. I don't know what it is, though. I have no clue. I don't have any interest to know what it is. As far as I'm concerned, it's like, leave me alone, goodbye type thing. And have I seen strange things in the sky? Oh, most definitely. I videotape things in the sky, but because I think on the one videotape I have, you even hear me say, oh, I'll never show this to the UFO community. They'll go crazy. I mean, just because it doesn't interest me.
Well, the craziest thing I've ever seen in the sky was above my house one night. It was really cold out. I came home and I got out of my car. My wife and I went out to the bar or something, and we came home and we get out of the car and it's a full moon. I look up at the sky, and this is not an alien story for people listening. I saw the ring of clouds. It was a perfect circle directly above our house. And it was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Like, it was a perfect ring. It kind of freaked me out. I was like, what the hell? I've never seen anything like this before. And I mean, I'm in Cornfield, Ohio. Like, I'm not in mountain hollers, like Terrain, Ohio. I'm in 500,000 acres of corn, Ohio. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but there's big trees out there, though.
Oh, yeah, there's absolutely big trees out here, which you're also an expert in Ohio. You run the Big Trees Ohio thing, which I would love to do a full podcast on that, because that's so interesting.
Well, what we should do is do the podcast at some trees.
I would love to do that, because I've seen some big trees on the Appalachian Trail, but Ohio, I've seen a decent couple size oak. I don't know if you've seen the one in what's the Secor Metro Park out here in Ohio in Toledo area.
Is it the one that's in? No, I'm thinking Sylvania. So you say there's one at the cemetery in Secor. I'm sure someone in our group has, because pretty much the cemeteries have been combed. The nicest tree in the Toledo area that I've seen is over at it's off of Central. What's that park along the river? Over by that old cemetery over there on over near Central Avenue.
It might be Secor. That might be the one I'm talking about.
No, it's not Secor. There's Woodland Cemetery.
Woodlawn?
Woodlawn. It's by Woodlawn, but there's a park along the Maumee. It's not Secor. It's like an inner city park. There's there's an amazing ginkgo tree there.
My viewers are going to kill me.
It's the state champion ginkgo tree now. But
Is it Woodward Park?
Yes, something like that.
Nice save there. Oh man, I would have got crucified.
Yeah, something like that. But no, there's a ginkgo tree that's freaking amazing. It's like 23 foot around.
Jeez.
It's a monster.
It's so Ohio has all these crazy records. Like we got presidents, we got astronauts, we got Bigfoot, we got giant trees. It's just a cool place. I like it here. I don't know. What do you think?
Ohio's a great state because look at our history. I mean, think about like Paul Brown. Paul Brown was obviously the coach of the Cleveland Browns, but Paul Brown was the actual high school football coach of the Massillon Tigers. I mean, and think of all the football coaches that have come from Ohio. Jim Tressel, Urban Meyer. I mean, you can go on and on down with these super famous names. They're from Ohio. Ohio's a great state. We are very fortunate to be in the Buckeye State. I've lived in California, lived in Arizona, lived in North Carolina, lived in Philly. Dude, you don't want to leave Ohio. Trust me when I say that. We have a great state because it has so much diversity.
Yeah,
I mean, it's amazing.
I did the same thing. I never lived in any of those places, but I traveled around the U.S. for a couple years when I was much younger and rowdier than I am now. And yeah, Ohio's not that bad. I do think people need to stop complaining. Maybe they need to go start looking for Bigfoot, give them something to do instead of complaining.
Well, get off your phones and stuff like that and get out in the woods. You can still bring your phone with you. It could be like your hiking partner, and you two could sit there and hike together.
There you go.
The fact is get out, folks. If you want to see things, I always tell people, well, they say, how do you find all this stuff? I'm constantly looking. I go everywhere, every park I can find. I go and hike and I seek and I look. And you laugh because of Big Trees, Ohio. Do you know how many Bigfoot reports I've got because of that? Because they see my Bigfoot shirts on, and they change the subject. And they tell you about their Bigfoot story.
You know what's crazy is, so I've followed you on Big Trees, Ohio for a few years. I love the pictures. Anybody who doesn't follow you guys on Facebook or Instagram, these trees are massive, and you're posting them all the time. Are people sending those into you?
We get a lot of leads, but to be honest with you, I'm a traveling salesman, and I drive all over the state. So when I'm driving around, I'm always looking, and when I see them, I mark them on Google Maps. I pin them with the pinning feature, and that way when I have time, I come back to them. And I'm like a cold call specialist. That's what I do in sales. So when I can go into anyone's property, go knock on the door, have the look of shock on their face, and within 5 minutes, we're looking at their tree. They're telling me stories about it, the history, about how granddaddy's granddaddy planted it. And so people, get to talk about their tree, or they learn what it is. They don't even know what kind of tree it is. And so it really is it's just networking 101 at its best. And yes, we get tons of submit people that message the page. Would you come out and look at our tree? Tell us what it is. And so we're just so blessed as a group to be able to have that. But like I said, folks, even like in related to Bigfoot, because of that interest in me wearing my Bigfoot gear, people always say, I know someone that saw one, or I saw one, and then vice versa. If I'm going on a Bigfoot investigation and I tell people about my tree interest, you know how many lectures I've done in the state where the people have come up after my lecture and say, we have a huge tree on our property and feel free to come see it. So it goes both ways. So
that's how I feel about podcasting. I literally just messaged you out of the blue. Like, hey, I like your stuff. Will you come on my podcast? And luckily you said yes.
Well, initially it was supposed to be on a tree thing.
Yeah. I found out about this just by looking up your name and the big trees. And I was like, oh my gosh, this could be 10 podcasts. You know what I'm saying? We could sit down and have a long discussion on years and years and years and years of experiences and things that have happened and interviews and investigations. But I mean, I'll be honest with you, you're very lucky to have me on a podcast. I don't typically do podcasts. I just usually,
I like to speak in front of people.
Mm-hmm.
I've been told I'm a very good public speaker, and I don't use any slide, no PowerPoint. I don't do any. I just talk.
That's the way to do it.
And I have people eating out of my hands by the end. And
that's a good skill.
And well, I mean, I used to train salesmen for a living. And the thing is, you're selling your product to close the deal.
Yep.
And that's one thing I'm very good at. But also, folks, it's like with any hobby. Even if you're a golfer, even if you're a skier or a backpacker, the best ones are passionate about it. Mm-hmm. If you have passion like I do for Bigfoot and for big trees, you know what? You're going to go 110% after your goal, your end goal. So, and as long as you're doing that and you're happy doing it, you should do it. If it's a miserable thing, the Bigfoot community tends to get very political. Mm-hmm. And there's people that come and go all the time because they get so emotionally distraught that they just give up and leave for a while. And I tell them, don't let the stress overwhelm you. You have to, if you're not having fun doing it, don't do it.
What's the end goal? What's the end goal, like the definitive evidence that would prove to someone that this is real? Because I think that's what it'll take to get anybody to believe in it.
Well, see, you just said an absolute false statement, though, because you even said 16% of the people do believe in it. That's a lot more than anybody.
The majority of the people.
Well, what's going to happen is, unfortunately, one of these is going to get hit by a car or a truck or found dead in the winter. Or a hunter's going to shoot one in fear and kill it. And, it's not going to be me. I don't want to harm these things. No, absolutely not. But when that does happen, it's going to be sad because a Bigfoot's life would have been lost. But in the end run, it's going to, in my opinion, it's going to help, save them for many, many more generations to come. Because, and to be honest with you, and you're going to laugh when I say this, they really don't need to be found because they don't need to be saved. They're doing such a good job evading us that really kind of being a legend or a folklore or a myth is kind of to their advantage.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, I think it was, gorillas were thought to be mythological until
like 1921.
Yeah, like fairly recently in the time span. So it's a lot to take in. It's a lot for people to take in, but in the outdoors world, it's always talked about, but nobody ever actually talks about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I run an outdoors podcast. It's mostly geared around backpacking, kayaking, hiking, fishing, outdoors, hunting stuff. And everybody I know either jokes about Bigfoot, talks about Bigfoot, or somebody has a story. But nobody is ever, when I ask them, like, dead on, do you believe this? Nobody ever will give me a straight answer.
Of course, because they're afraid to admit it. I mean, what you got to tell them is that, it's simple as this. It's like, what do you think is the possibility? Do you think there's a possibility? You know what most people are going to say now? Because Bigfoot's very mainstream is, well, you know what? There's a probability something could be out there. Why not? It's not like 20 years ago. If you mentioned the word Bigfoot, people's eyes would turn. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was a taboo subject.
Well,
very taboo.
Those really cheesy movies from like the 70s didn't really help, yeah. I don't think.
Well, but actually the ones like The Legend of Boggy Creek, the Bigfoot myth or monsters, those were actually really good movies. It was the ones it's the slasher movies.
Yeah.
That ruin it for Bigfoot. The Bigfoots, these killer Bigfoots that are just eating people and tearing people apart. That is not a Sasquatch. A Sasquatch just does not do that. If you try to harm a Sasquatch, yes, it's going to rip your arms and legs out of your socket and eat you. But if you're not trying to harm a Sasquatch, they're terrified of you.
Yeah. So I guess I'll ask you one final question because I know you're a busy guy. I don't want to keep you all night. But so say someone like myself is out backpacking, just enjoying my night, camping, sleeping in a tent, just doing my own thing. And I wake up to the Ohio howl, or I wake up to rocks getting thrown at my tent. What do I do? Because if I'm 20 miles into the wilderness of northern Michigan, there's nowhere to run. What do you suggest? Because I would like, this is a question for me. I'm not even going to beat around the bush. Like, this isn't for my friend. Like, what do I do?
Well, if you're going to be beating around the bush, that's a good song by AC/DC, by the way. Highway to Hell album.
Yeah.
No, in all honesty, if you're 20 miles away from anywhere, you have to stay put in your tent. Best thing to do is to make noise. If you have a radio, if you have anything, a flashlight, they hate white light. Just wait it out. You'll be scared. Your little turtle head will keep popping in and out. You don't have to worry. But once it gets daytime, you'll be fine. I mean, be patient. Don't go. Remember, think of what Jason thought of on Friday the 13th. Why are these people always running into the woods? Are they this stupid? No, stay put. They're going to scare you. They're going to mess with you. They're having fun. Just think of it this way. You probably had some mid-teenager or just above teenager age Bigfoots that are just screwing with you for fun, shits and giggles. I mean, that's all they're doing. Just be patient.
I never thought
you have a tent. They're afraid of you, but because it's at nighttime, they're just screwing with you.
It's like kids. It's like teenagers who run out across in cars trying to brave it. Like, no, you do it. Okay.
Yeah, or throwing tomatoes at cars, or throwing rocks at your tent. Ha ha ha! They're getting a good laugh at it.
That makes absolute sense.
Yeah, never panic, people. The best thing to do is if you have your phone, turn your recorder on. Just press your record function. Let it record what's going on, and just wait it out.
Yeah, because it's the more I read about this and all this stuff. Like we'll end with this. I was in Upper Peninsula last weekend, and it was really windy, so there were trees falling. I have a tree falling on video to tell you how windy it was, and we hear them falling over. But I heard one specific tree fall, and it sounded like a wood knock, and I was like, "Oh shit." And then I was like, dude, just chill out. Like, that it's windy, like trees are falling. But like, that's where my mind goes now. And it's like, I need to get out of this mindset all the time that not everything's going to be Bigfoot.
Well, then that's the thing. Everything isn't Bigfoot. There's rational explanations. It's just like these formations people see in the woods. Oh, it looks like a nest. The fact of the matter is Mother Nature is an incredible thing. When you have windstorms with old trees and ice and wind, you have a huge combination of where things fall and form structures. And it looks like, oh, it's a lair, etc. Sometimes they do, but 99.9999% of the times it's just total misidentification.
Absolutely. So, hey, Mark, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to talk to me. I know you said you don't do podcasts. You're more of a public speaker kind of guy. If you're ever out in the Toledo area, let me know.
Oh, I will be. They've been bugging me. Once COVID goes away, I'll be out there.
Yeah, if you do anything with the parks or you give any presentations, I'd definitely love to come out and talk to you in person. I'd definitely love to come out to you and do a Big Trees episode because that also is interesting to me. So if you want, let people know where to find you on social media, wherever, and we'll call it a day.
Well, the best thing to do is my Facebook page is Big Trees Ohio. And then it's also... Okay, here's a trick one. I would just tell you to go to Big Trees Ohio and message me through there because my Bigfoot page is kind of in maintenance mode right now. So until I rename it and things like that, but don't send me a Facebook friend request. I won't accept it. I get too many predators after me.
Yeah.
And I do all the time. Oh, geez.
I can imagine.
But if I meet you in person though, and we talk, that's different. I would definitely accept a friend request. I teach my kids the same thing. It's like, don't ever accept a friend request if you don't know this person, actually met them, know who they are, where they live, etc. And if you need to email me about a story or anything, use bigtreesohio@gmail.com. All one word, bigtreesohio@gmail.com. Since you guys are all outdoor people, hit me up. I'm an expert on gear, especially when it comes to hiking gear and survival gear. And I'd be glad to answer questions for that, things like that. So, and I put miles on. I just hit my 10th mile today. So
I know you were telling me that 10 miles a day, that's ambitious, man. I probably do like one.
I'm old. I'm probably much older than you. So I'm an oldie. I'm over 50.
Yeah, I just hit 31, so.
Yeah, you're a baby. And back when I was at 50, I did 1 million steps in 1 month.
Whew. That's a lot.
And Fitbit was so excited, they gave me all new equipment for free.
Holy shit.
Yeah,
I need to hit that.
They actually called me and said, "Did you really do 1 million steps?" I said, "Yep."
Wow.
Yes, it was a competition. Someone challenged me. So I think I had to average like 17 miles a day.
Dear God.
And I get up at 5 o'clock, knock out 7 miles by 6:45 in the morning, get my kids up, make their lunches, get them on the bus by 7:30. And then during lunchtime, instead of going to lunch, I'd always walk for an hour, get another 4 miles in. And then at night, I do the rest every day of the year. Every day of the year. I walk 10 miles every holiday, every Christmas, every Easter. It don't matter. No excuse.
Impressive.
And weather is no excuse. Blizzards, rainstorms, tsunamis, I walk.
Okay, so now we have a Bigfoot podcast. We have to do a hiking and backpacking gear podcast, and then we have to come back and do a Big Trees Ohio podcast. You're setting yourself up for a busy year.
Yeah, but that's if I accept it. There's a big difference.
That's true.
That's a big difference. So.
All right, Mark. I appreciate it. Thank you.
It was real good talking to you. Nice meeting you, and I look forward to taking you out on a big tree adventure. If you come over to the Cleveland area, I could take you to an area within, we could see about 10, 12 trees and all monsters within like a 15-mile area.
I'm game. That sounds like a great day to me.
Yeah, we'd have fun. Lots of fun.
All right. Talk to you later, Mark. Have a good one. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching this episode of the Aptitude Outdoors podcast here on YouTube. Don't forget to go down below and hit that subscribe button. We can really use all the help we can get. I really appreciate you guys sticking around through this October Halloween episode. I had a ton of fun making the intro, and I had a lot of fun talking to Mark, and I want to thank him for coming on the podcast. As you heard earlier, he does not really do podcasts. So for him to come out of his way to do that is awesome. So make sure you head over to the Big Trees Ohio Facebook and Instagram page and check that out. They're awesome pages, and Mark's an awesome dude, and we hope to have more Halloween fun throughout the rest of October. We'll see you all next time. This is the Aptitude Outdoors podcast, where we interview travelers, explorers, and outdoorsmen and women to bring you the best tips and stories from around the world.